sometimes ups outnumber the downs. Nodding hands. I'm inclined to believe if we were so down, we'd up and leave. We'd up and fly if we had wings for flying. Can't you see the tears we're crying? Can there be some happiness for me? Nodding head.
That's a gloomy tune, Tom. Can't you sing something brighter?
Sorry, chap. It's just not in me. I'm inclined to believe if we were so down, we'd up and leave. We'd up and fly if we had wings for flying. Can't you see the tears we're crying? Can there be some happiness for me? Nodding hands.
Man, oh man, that old King George sure made good his threats. He had taxed the life out of the poor people of the colonies, or so the story goes. Americans were taxed an estimated 2% of their income in 1775, compared to 25% for British citizens. Anyway, the colonials were coming to grips with some changes. The British usually kept taxes very low to encourage new settlers. But with two major tax bills in the 1760s, the British were raising taxes on goods with the express intent to raise money. Did it matter to the colonials that the money being raised by the crown was used for their protection against pirates, to secure their goods against Indian raiding parties or French guerrilla campaigns? Not at all. They were, if you'll excuse the pun, royally pissed off.
Tom, if you're so torn up inside, why won't you lend your support to the movement instead of sitting around singing impotent self-pitying tunes?
Let's not start up again, John.
And why not? We sit here talking endlessly about this and that, while every day the British tighten their grip. Must we wait until they have us all in chains before we see the bald truth that is staring us in the face?
Are we talking about King George?
Yes.
Oh, good. My favorite subject.
We sit here talking endlessly about this and that, while every day the British tighten their grip. Must we wait until they have us all in chains before we see the bald truth that is staring us in the face? There is only one way this ends, with a bullet.
Did you know King George was shot once? Yes, it's true. The bullet died.
There are many issues in question, and we won't get to a solution simply by raging against some far-off tyrant, real or imagined, in the hopes of achieving some utopian vision of freedom. Sam, can I get a fresh one over here, please?
Going right up.
You were talking about people's lives, John. Many people will have to die to accomplish your aims. Many more will be injured, scarred, and maimed. And that's if we win, which is a long shot at best. Thank you, Sam.
King George died 20 years ago. Death just hasn't built up the courage to tell him yet.
Of course, in real life, none of this actually happened. This is what some may call a metaphysical representation of an historical event, or call it artistic license. Anyway, after all the commotion, the king finally sent in the troops. America was occupied territory, and the natives didn't like it one bit. Hello, my good man.
Before you settle in, just know that John's on again about...
Our slavery and subjugation at the hands of an evil tyrant? Oh, just that little yarn. Don't mind me.
Here we go.
He is right, you know. This cannot be tolerated.
I find a great deal can be tolerated once one has determined to try.
You find a lot of things, but courage doesn't seem to be among them.
It's well and good to sit among friends in a room like this one, indulging in pride and righteous outrage. But at nation building, cooler heads must prevail. Independence will not be won with bluff and bluster, but rather with calm, collected negotiation.
You'll negotiate your neck into a noose?
Despite the reckless rhetoric, John has a point. We cannot sit by while the crown steals our right to decide our own fate. A small tax on imports today becomes a universal sales tax tomorrow. There will be no end to it. We are right to take alarm at the very first intrusion upon our liberties.
James, you know I respect you. How is Dolly, by the way? Well? Good. And the boys? Well, I'm sure things will pick up. But understand what we are up against. I don't like it any more than you do. But the British, with that navy and the full might and...
Ah, Tom! For crying out loud!
We would be fools to awaken that dragon. There is too much at stake. We must be sure of ourselves before going on the offensive.
Todd, my old boy, I've mentioned this before. A clear and decisive victory is not necessary to achieve our aims. The mother country has interests in Canada, Australia, Africa, and they have to keep one eye on the Scots. All we have to do is run out the clock, bleed them dry, win a few key skirmishes, cut off their supply lines, harass them every step of the way. Destroy their will to fight, and they'll get on their grand fleet and sail home. We are not sacking London, boys. We are defending our own land. And nobody knows it like we do.
Mr. Franklin is right. We cannot trust the crown in negotiations in any case. Men with power are never to be trusted. If liberty is the goal, and I cannot think of anything else as worthy of the price, it must be taken.
Gentlemen, thank you all for your consideration. I do feel, however, that it is prudent to proceed as previously discussed. The crown is not insensitive to our plight. We have allies in Buckingham Palace and a considerable amount of leverage. Mr. Franklin is right in suggesting the British are spread very thin. With the right approach, we can achieve autonomy without spilling a single drop of blood.
King George has Indian blood. In fact, he's 1/8 Cherokee. This has nothing to do with ancestry. The man ate an Indian.
Of course, in real life, this process was far more complicated, formal, bureaucratic, and really boring. The Continental Congress took nearly 14 months and many, many sessions before reaching a decision on independence. Even after this lengthy process, the entire pact nearly came crashing down in the 11th hour when furor broke over a passage in the Declaration concerning slavery, termed a cruel war against human nature. The passage laid responsibility for this peculiar institution at the feet of King George himself. Of course, the words were ultimately removed at the demand of the southern states. But despite this seeming complexity, the decision in question remained a simple one. Should man have the essential right to determine his own fate? If so, at what price?
Are we as low as the Negro that we would sit here discussing terms for the permanent provisioning of our own subjugation?
There are other means of addressing our grievances. King George has many diplomats and governors at his disposal, whose only task is ensuring the well-being of the colonies of Great Britain. We can plead our case through them and achieve our aim that way, rather than risking great bloodshed and strife with no certainty of success.
So, the sheep are back to bleating for their dinner, are they?
Indeed they are.
Alexander, we have discussed it and agreed. You must defer to the decision of the conference.
I believe that is to be his plan, Tom.
I'll leave deference to the dead. For now I must heed a greater call.
Mr. Hamilton, with respect, we are quite inured to your histrionics. Rant away, but please know our course has been set.
Thank you, sir. Challenge accepted. You may all remember a story relayed months ago by a baker friend of mine concerning his daughter. A young maid, and fair, the bloom of hope and possibility flush in her cheek. She was on her way home from the shop when she was accosted by a young redcoat. The man was newly off duty and already reeking of the local grog. After his advances were rejected, he became violent. In front of dozens of witnesses, he raped her, right there in the street, for everyone to see. Was he arrested and taken before a colonial tribunal? Was he brought to justice according to our laws and by our own people? No. He was sent home, judged by men who have never trod our soil or breathed colonial air, men who would never see the lifeless and barren look in the dear maiden's eye, or hear her father's plea for reparation. Today, we received word that, as atonement for his crime, he was given a 2-week stay in an open prison, levied a small fine, and sent back to the field with what I can only assume was a very stern reprimand. Mr. J, my good fellow, if this is the fruit of your diplomacy, I think you have quite missed the mark.
I must admit, his voice does speak the words of my own heart.
Pull the heartstrings all you will, Alexander. For all your words, the British hold the high ground. They have the ships, the guns, the training. We are farmers, gentlemen, tradesmen, merchants. Even if necessity forced our hand, on what could we pin our hopes of victory?
We are not mice to be toyed with by the fat cat king until it suits his fancy to pluck us up and devour us. Is that all you think of us, Mr. J? That we are merely harmless idiots, hopelessly outnumbered and overmatched? There are those among us with great military prowess, men who have fought and killed under the Union Jack. Even you cannot question the substance of General Washington. There is no greater man in all of England. He will make a formidable commander. Cornwallis and Lee can lead our southern and inland forces. Young Benedict Arnold is a rising star with a keen military mind. He can lead our troops in and around New England.
Bravo! A most excellent plan.
It was not an excellent plan.
And how do we prevail? I walk in the streets, I dine in the cafes and drink in the coffee shops, and for every person with the light of liberty in his eyes, I see 3 who are just happy to receive their nickels for the day's labor, stroll on down to the pub to enjoy their share of grog. We are outnumbered and outmatched.
We don't need numbers. We have God and a just cause on our side. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority. Give me 100 lovers of liberty, men who are keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the hearts and minds of their countrymen, and I shall give you a force that will make King George, sitting in his tower, tremble with fear.
The fear of spiders is called arachnophobia. The fear of tight spaces is called claustrophobia. The fear of King George, that's called logic.
Sheep. You are all speaking like sheep. What man endures the depredations we have suffered and continues to speak this way? King George would make us as docile and tame as the blacks we rule over with such arbitrary sway.
As much as my heart swells to hear this melody of freedom you sing today, we must give peace a chance. The English have demonstrated a willingness to negotiate. If there is a possibility, however small, of attaining our aim without violence, we must take it. Surely you can see that.
Ah, peace. Yes, we must try for peace. The peace of an occupied land, teeming with foreign soldiers. The peace of families turned out of their homes at gunpoint, forced to give up their own roofs to shelter their oppressors. Is this the peace you speak of? A peace kept by a ruling class of men in a land far away, toying with our lives like pawns on a chessboard, counting their shekels, while the redcoats massacre us in the streets.
L-O-L. This is a reference to an incident known as the Boston Massacre. Despite its grandiose name, it was actually instigated by an angry mob of colonials harassing an on-duty British sentry. When the crowd became violent, throwing stones and snowballs, several redcoats came to his aid, ultimately firing on the people, killing 5 and wounding several others. Certainly unfortunate, but there was blame to be had on both sides. This did not stop the colonials from using it to great effect in pro-war propaganda.
And what of our heritage, sir? Would you have us turn our backs on everything? Our culture? Our history? What are we if not Englishmen?
I am not. Do not count me among those most loyal of subjects to the great tyrant king. I am an American. My friends, ours is a new world. By some means, call it God, or Providence, or just dumb luck, we stand on its shores. One is yet unfettered by the slow accumulation of noble birthright and sacred blood. That is their world, but it need not be ours. Before us lies one moment, one opportunity to declare for all mankind that one's merit is greater than his blood. It is for this reason and this reason alone that we must fight. Not because we would will it so, but because what we desire cannot be given. It must be taken. Any peaceful accord will surely end in some act of submission to English sovereignty. Know this as you know the face of your father. No man can ever be truly free at another's discretion.
Hamilton the rabble-rouser.
Why, General, you are late. We were just going to war.
The general is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
I see you've worked the room to quite the fever pitch, Alexander. What terrible song does the warbird sing today, I wonder?
The Song of Freedom, sire. Perhaps you'll recognize the tune?
I think you all know my mind. I would like nothing greater than to strike the killing blow for liberty, to test my own mettle, and send the lobsterbacks scurrying for their own shores once and for all. But those are the selfish desires of my own heart. Our hopes for a new nation cannot hinge on such. John, it appears your position is as clear as Mr. Hamilton. Madison, are you resolved as well? Justice Jay, I don't suppose even the plying words of our compatriot could have swayed your convictions.
No, sire. though I must acknowledge they were quite compelling.
Tom, that leaves you.
I am torn. No man feels greater than I the terrible price we paid, and yet, I must confess, my choice would be dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. All men are born free, and my heart tells me that there may yet be no price too great to pay in the service of its preservation.
See, General, the music swells. Lose yourself in it.
I would ride into the field today were it simply my own life at stake. And all of you, statesmen, politicians, lawyers, not a soldier in the lot. It is not your lives to be sacrificed to the musket and the cannon and the bayonet. It will not be your blood which buys so dearly the victories we seek, or the glories of which you sing.
We are not afraid to die.
You speak lightly of conflict, a lot of you. You have never seen war. Its gruesome aspect is something at which even the hardest of men blench. Until you have seen it, you cannot know. Are you prepared? Are you? To look death in the face? To see him take your men, your countrymen, your friends? Do you know what it is to be charged with the welfare, the lives of others? Fail. To look their wives, or worse, their mothers in the eye afterward. Have you ever sat alone on the battlefield in the moments before the violence, shivering with the fear and the shame, dreading the losses to come and almost hoping you are among them yourself? His palms are sweating, knees weak, arms heavy, ball in the musket, ready, aim, unsteady. He's nervous. On the surface, he looks calm and ready to drop bombs, but his heart keeps forgetting why he wrote down. The battle goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking now. Everything is smoking now. His men are dead. Time's up. Over. Pow!
Back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes George. Did he choke? He was scared, but he won't give up that, is he? No, he won't have it. He knows when this conflict is told, it won't matter. He's sold. He knows that. And he's bold. He knows though he feels old, the deck stacked and his row is in front of his nose. Back to the saddle. A rope on that jacket. Go capture this moment. We hope you don't pass it. You better lose yourself. In the music, the moment. Own it. You better let it go. We only get one shot. Do not miss your chance. Revolt. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Blood's escaping from this hole that is gaping.
This world is ours for the taking.
Kill the king!
As we move toward
New world order. Our normal lives are over.
the revolution is close to postmortem. It only grows harder. It only grows hotter.
These foes are all
They
on.
blow us all over.
Word coast to coast goes, you're known as a globetrotter.
A lonely road.
God only knows. You've gone farther from home with no father. You'll go home and barely know your own daughter. So hold your nose, son, because here goes the cold water. Your troops won't want any more. They're bomb fodder. They'll move along to the song to keep a stain from their honor. And so the old opera is told and unfolds. I suppose it's a slaughter. Drummer's beat goes on. Tump to tump.
No more games. We'll change what you call rage. Tear this revolution open like two dogs caged. We were playing in the beginning, but the mood's all changed. We've been chewed up and spit out and taxed in spades. We know we'll never shape a new nation with newspaper. Good old King George is a ruthless dictator. We didn't fall asleep as good king's men, then wait traitor. Red capes surround our ground, bound to enslave our children's children's children. We wait liberator. Pardon me, I know I'm playing the crusader, but these rights they take away were all endowed by our creator. Lady Liberty demands her retribution. Vindicate her. These times are hard, and it's getting even harder trying to feed and water the seed. Plus, see dishonor caught up between being a revolutionary father and this drama screaming on and on. It's too much for me to want to stay in one spot. Another day of monotony has gotten me to the point I'm like a snail. I've got to formulate a plot. If I end up in jail or shot, success is my only option. Failure's not. Men, I love you. This trail has got to go. I cannot grow old in Salem's lot. Here I go. It's our shot. Fate fell us not. This may be the only opportunity we have got. You better
Lose yourself in the music, the moment. Own it. Never let it go. We only get one shot. Do not miss this chance. Revolt! This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
You better lose yourself in the music, the moment. Own it. Never let it go. We only get one shot. Do not miss your chance. Revolt!
This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
That's so much cooler than I thought it would be.